Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, ALFA dumps Mo Brooks. Also, the V-Team takes a look at gun deaths in the state. And state auditor Jim Zeigler writes a book. Crayons not included.
This is 1,000 monkeys working at 1,000 typewriters. Soon, they'll have written the greatest novel known to man. Let's see. It was the best of times. It was the blurst of times. You stupid monkey. You shut up.
Ah, that's the ghostwriting team. Way to go, Ziggy. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V. Welcome to The Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and I'm joined today by Beth Clayton, Democratic strategist, attorney at law, and all around one of my favorite people.
Oh, thanks, Bill.
Yes, Susan Britt, the associate editor of APR, associate producer of this show, and also the love of my life.
Thank you,
It's
Bill.
a holiday season, can't we say that?
That's
Jonathan?
right. You always say that about your wife, Bill.
Yeah. And Jonathan Barbie, Constable Jonathan Barbie, Republican stalwart, and one of the great guys.
Well,
And producer of the show.
Yeah, and producer of this show.
Thank you.
So the holidays are on us. You know, Thanksgiving is past. We're heading into Christmas, and it
Dun,
is.
dun, dun.
Yeah.
My tree's already up.
To me, as they say, this is the happiest time of the year.
It's the haphazardous sleep.
I agree with that.
I love the holiday season. I love Christmas. I love Thanksgiving, and I tolerate New Year. But one of the things, Beth, that has come up, we always think it's a slow news week, but not necessarily. Lead Academy in Montgomery, big charter school, headed by the newly elected representative from this area, Charlotte Meadows.
Gross.
Fraud.
What?
Judge Jimmy Poole ruled this past week that Nicole Ivey, who was the former principal of that school, she said there was wrongful termination. She lost her insurance, she lost her salary and all that. Judge Poole this week said that until the final hearing was completed, that the school had to pay her salary, reinstitute her insurance.
Right. Now, and full disclosure, Judge Poole is, I think, an amazing jurist. He's also a good friend of mine. But I trust him to look at these issues and look at the merits. And what he did when he granted this injunction, one of the things you have to prove when you grant an injunction or when you ask for an injunction is that you have a high likelihood of succeeding on the merits. So I think the fact that Judge Poole is able to look at this and in good faith say, yeah, she needs to get back to work until this is decided means that there's something on Miss Ivy Price's side when it comes to this case.
So, Susan, Ms. Ivy Price alleges that the reason she was fired is because she reported Lead Academy and the shenanigans over there, according to her, to the Alabama Board of Education. And so this was retaliation for her disclosing some of the wrongdoings over there. Now, 8 teachers have resigned, citing various allegations of wrongdoing over there.
They have, and one of the allegations is that after all the teachers arrived for this school year, Ms. Meadows wanted to go and redo their contracts where they ended up getting paid less. They ended up having to work more hours with no comp time involved. That's one of the big ones that stood out with me, and I think that's something that should have been reported.
Well, I think one of the most egregious things that I saw, Jonathan, that some of the teachers or Ms. Ivy Price accused them of endangering children by overcrowding, but they also discouraged children with physical disabilities from coming to the school.
If that is true, that's unconscionable. Truly. I have a sister with disabilities, and I don't take that lightly. And for all of these teachers to come forward and say things like this, I mean, first of all, teachers are the most underpaid profession we have, and that comes from my mom's a teacher, my wife was a teacher. I mean, obviously, this is something that I hope they really delve into and they really find some answers to.
Yeah. Well, we want charter schools in the state, but what we don't want is bad charter schools. Some people want charter
Exactly.
schools. What they don't want is bad charter schools. Well, Beth, you got to love this. Jim Zeigler, our favorite auditor,
Whose favorite?
well, somebody's favorite, I'm sure, has written a book about his ventures fighting against what he calls tollsters, fighting the toll
And the
bridge.
never Trumpers or never Zeiglers. What
Never
do we call them?
Zeiglers, he's fighting against them too. And never Zeiglers are people who don't accept his plans. The reason they don't accept Zeigler's plans
Because they're
is
stupid.
Exactly.
I mean, like, but look at that face, man.
That's
Like,
how you
bless
really
his
feel.
heart. I feel like he might need a charter school. I mean, Billy, you nailed it. We were talking pre-show, and you're like, I don't know if it comes with crayons or not.
Right.
No,
That's
they're
the whole
sold
thing.
separately.
Yeah,
Sold
they're
separately.
sold separately, yeah.
Just insanity on this. I just can't believe that he can write, much less that he can author a full novel.
What's this book called again?
It's called Blocking the I-10 Toll Scheme, a Successful Citizens Movement. It's mainly a work of fiction.
I think there was a parade involved and a bunch of,
He does. There's a Mardi Gras type parade celebrating his
Him?
big victory and
his
all
victory.
this stuff. Never happened.
Well, I am not sure. I don't live in Mobile, but I will say this: when Big Jim Zeigler does it, he does it big.
Bless his heart.
Yeah,
bless his heart.
Bless his heart. Well, one of the things I really like, Susan, of course, is that he compares himself to having basically grown up in Mayberry. And so I went back and tried to see if there were any Mayberry characters that Jim Zeigler might appear to be like. I think we were on the wrong show.
We're on the wrong show, absolutely, because I think it's more like Mr. Haney from Green Acres.
Mr. Haney!
Mr. Haney.
Y'all.
Mr. Haney was a con man and a
But-
salesman.
Yes, and
always sell a
also,
bill of goods.
can we point out this man is the state auditor? Like, his
Right.
job is
Yeah,
to make sure things are
seriously.
happening above board.
Right.
And I mean, the whole, it's,
The thing is, he spends more time doing things that are not required in his job than he does his job. You go to his Facebook page and you go through 50 of his posts, and maybe one is where someone's passed an audit. All his other posts, his official auditor Facebook page.
If we're not careful, and I'm just going to say this, and Jim, I've known him for a while, but if he's not careful, the legislature is going to have enough of him and that office, and they're going to abolish it.
They've
And that,
blocked it for a
that's where
while.
we're headed. And honestly, it's a good office. We need it in this state because I know a lot of people that work for the government, and things end up missing, whether it be a coffee mug or a laptop.
Well,
I've watched couches get smuggled back into the state house.
Well,
in the
we're
middle
gonna
of the
have
night.
we're gonna have to leave it right there. If you'd like to buy Zeigler's book, it's $22.22. Because since he had to surrender his law license, he's not making as much money.
Yikes.
Anyway, you're watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. When we come back, we're gonna look at gun deaths in the state.
Hey, I'm Jamie Johnson. When we reach the age of 18, voting becomes our civic duty. But what if it was our job? We wouldn't be so quick to call in sick or go back home if the lines were too long, or just dismiss the idea altogether. Elections are also how we collectively write the song that tells our story, and voting is our solitary voice. So register to vote and go get your government-issued photo ID and add your voice to the song of Alabama.
What a great opportunity for your success. Adding 500,000 highly skilled employees to our workforce by 2025 is how we stay ahead in Alabama. Our economy is stronger than it's been in years, and a skilled workforce is more important than ever. Things move fast, so choose your path. Your success is waiting, plus a great future for Alabama. Success Plus. Go for it.
And Hey man, what are you doing today?
Playing the game. Thought I'd go out for a drive later, maybe. Text some friends while I'm doing it. Scroll through social media. Kill a family 4 and a head on collision.
Cool, man.
Drive safe, Alabama. A message from your Alabama Department of Transportation.
Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. Jonathan, I dare say you own firearms. I do. Susan does.
So does Beth.
Don't know about Beth. Beth may not.
Of course, Beth owns a firearm.
Actually, it's not in my possession because my permit expired.
Okay. So anyway, but we did a report last week that shows that Alabama has the 3rd highest death by firearms in the nation. And it's really shocking when you break this down. I mean, we have a gun culture here. So most people know how to handle firearms. A lot of them do not, but most do. But the shocking thing for me in general was that on average, around 550 people, somewhere in that neighborhood, self-murder every year. They commit suicide using a handgun or some type of firearm.
Well, what's sad to me, Bill, 527 people kill themselves with a gun. That is less of a gun problem and more of a mental health problem. And we have talked about on this show dozens of times the mental health situation in our state, which goes all the way from our schools up to our prisons. And we have got to do more about educating people, helping people, seeing the signs of depression, and not being afraid to say something to someone, in that situation, even if we know they own firearms, saying something.
Yeah.
And I see some of this, the accidental killings. Well, those things happen, and we had talked about it earlier. Beth had said 4 million people in the state, and there's not that many accidental shootings. It's just
23 is still 23 people more than
Right.
should accidentally die by gun.
Right.
Let me be clear. I was it's just 23 people.
No,
I had to
yeah.
clarify my point on that.
Yeah.
But again, in a state that's a fairly low statistic when you think that some that people are taking their lives. That we also have on average around 400 people murdered every year.
And we just over the last weekend, the sheriff in Lowndes County was murdered.
Yeah.
And then that murder-suicide up in Blount County, I think it was. That one was horribly sad.
So it's just, I think, and Susan, you and Beth maybe speak to this, but I think there is some cause and effect here. People that commit suicide are going to find a way to kill themselves. Guns are very convenient. We have a lot of guns, and to be 3rd in gun deaths, I think that is alarming. I think we need to look at that more carefully.
Right. Well, we talk a lot about, feminists talk about masculinity and things, but let's also discuss the fact that men are more likely to kill themselves with a gun than women are, and men are more likely to engage in violence with a firearm than women are. And a lot of this, I think, comes down to women are more likely to seek mental health services than men are. And so statistically, we're looking at the big picture overall trends here. Obviously, each individual person is different, but, a lot of this is going to come down to let's get rid of the stigma around this kind of stuff and let's make it where, so, think about police, military, people like that who are in traumatic situations, they have this stigma about seeking treatment, and there's largely men in those positions. So, I just want to see everybody be able to get the help they need.
Yeah, and in that it can affect their promotions, it can affect, where they move within the police departments or in the military, and that's just, it's terribly wrong.
Well, and for me, it's one of these things, again, if you're going to if you're going to be armed, you need to have gun safety training. You need to know how to operate it
Absolutely.
properly. I mean, I'm very careful with my firearms, but I've seen a round show up in my chamber when I know I didn't put it there, but somehow it was there. But because I know gun safety, I always assumed that it is it is ready to fire.
Right.
Again, there are people who don't understand that that's part of it. And part of it also is having them put away responsibly so
Right.
that children can't get to them.
Because I'd be willing to bet some of these 23 accidentals were children, or
a
involved
bunch of
children.
them are.
You know, there had to be.
Well, I remember a young child visiting our farm one time, and he was talking about guns. So I went in and took him and took mine apart, showed him how to put it together and all that. And then I explained to him that this had one sole purpose. It was to kill another human being. He didn't like that.
Or apparently wild hogs, according to.
But,
Yeah, but you have to have high-powered semi-automatics for that.
a single stack Glock 380 is designed to kill another human being.
Fairly close range.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so let's don't kid ourselves. I mean, I know I have a lot of people that own 4 or 5 RA-15s that claim they're for, but they're for self-protection. Let's be honest. They're not.
Yeah, you're right. And we just got to do something to better the gun safety.
Yep.
and
Yeah, I don't think it's more controlling the guns, because if somebody wants a gun, they're going to get a gun.
Yeah.
So I don't think restricting it is, and we've got to look at the mental health issues and what is the root cause.
Well, and
of
the
this.
violent culture that we have too. But anyway, we've got about a minute and a half, Beth. This is something I think is happening in Birmingham, and you may hate it and you may love it, but I think
I may hate it. Do
no,
you know
you
me?
may not. Hate it, but people may love it or hate it. But the Human Rights Coalition has found that Birmingham is one of the premier cities for LGBTQ individuals to live and work, and they're protecting their rights there.
They did. They got 100% on the scorecard, one of the first southern
Fantastic.
cities to get it. And shout out to my dear friend Josh Coleman, because he is Mayor Woodfin's LGBTQ liaison, and he has worked tirelessly to get this accomplishment for the city.
Good job, Josh.
Well, it's interesting to me, and Jonathan, there's plenty of conservatives and Democrats that still have a problem with the LGBTQ community, but overall, that there's a city in Alabama that's putting their rights, saying they have rights, I think is interesting.
Well, I mean, look, let's be frank with it. People have rights. I mean, and you can't take it back to the 60s and the 1800s. People have rights. But I think the worry, if you talk to conservatives, is, we don't want our city to turn into West Hollywood or something that is just.
I don't think Birmingham's going to turn into West.
But that's.
I think we're good.
But that's the fear that comes out. That's what the first thing that people think is like, oh my gosh, we don't want our city to turn into some crazy place where you can't walk the streets. And I don't think Birmingham will turn into that. But that's the attitude that comes.
We're mostly
We're
just trying to
trying
make
to-
sure you can't get fired for being gay and that kind of thing. Is what we're trying to
Got,
do.
Yeah.
equal health care
Exactly.
and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
That's not going to endanger anybody who's walking down the street.
Exactly.
Well, if somebody hits you with their purse, it could.
Right.
Well, yeah, if you hit it with my
Gays,
purse.
noted
it'll kill you.
threats to everyone.
Did I say that? Sorry. All right, you're watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. Mo Brooks has fallen out of favor with ALFA.
Whoa.
Yep.
The Energy Institute of Alabama promotes reliable, affordable, and clean energy to help grow our economy, create high-paying jobs, and build public support for Alabama's energy industry. The Energy Institute of Alabama is the best source of energy industry information and how it affects households across the state, from convenient energy production to alternative fuels to solar power and beyond.
What are you doing today, babe?
I thought I'd head down to the lake with the guys, do a little fishing. Of course, none of us will be wearing our seatbelts. I'll lose control of the truck, wrap it around a tree, and kill us all.
Okay.
Drive safe, Alabama. A message from your Alabama Department of Transportation.
Hello, I'm William Wyatt Bibb, the first governor of Alabama. On December 14th, 1819, Alabama became the 22nd state to enter the Union. This year, we celebrate 200 years of statehood. There is no better way to commemorate our 200th anniversary than by registering to vote and securing your government-issued photo ID. Together, let's make a difference for Alabama.
Now you can always look your best without all those injections, appointments, and costs. Bellafill is the only dermal filler that stimulates and maintains collagen growth long term. Now time is on your side.
Welcome back to The Beat, the voice of Alabama politics. You know, it is the giving season, and Susan, you know, we spend a lot of time, those of us who have lived longer know what it's like to go from the big holiday seasons to the small ones. But it's always about giving and about what we should be thankful for. We also, it's a time to take stock, and I thought it was interesting to take stock about our state a little bit over the last few days. And one of the things we've seen is Kay Ivey has steadied the ship of state. Government right now is relatively calm and stable. Jobs are plentiful. And the state overall seems to be doing well. However, we can always do more. There are some 13,000 veterans and their families that do not have health insurance. Our children's health insurance, was heading in the right direction. Over the last 2 years, it's been in decline. Some new 11,000 children are without health care. And most shockingly to me is that in some of our counties, there are up to 30% of children who do not have enough to eat. Mm-hmm. They don't have a way of getting enough food to eat because their families do not have enough to eat. And, this is a question that's been asked through the years. What then should we do? Now, we can argue Democrat, Republican, liberal, conservative, independent. We can argue about what government's response to that should be. I think what we cannot defend is doing nothing. So having said all that, we got these problems. We need to look at them and address them.
And some of them are real easy to solve. For one, Medicaid expansion will take care of your veterans and your children without health care. Addressing the food insecurity is another issue. We've got some programs in the schools for breakfast and lunch, but we don't have programs for nights and weekends for these children. And having two little ones around all the time that are almost 2 now, they eat constantly, and they need that. There's got to be a way to solve this. There's got to be a way to, put down everything and let's look at our problems.
Jonathan, our most of our lawmakers claim they say that their Christian faith is their moral center that guides them. Some say that they are in the position they have because God put them there. Mm-hmm. If we are to assume those two things are true, then do we not have a joint responsibility to put that into practice, even if it is state government? We could do away with the grocery tax tomorrow. Oh, yeah. That would help some folks. Oh, yeah. And I don't think we're looking at folks wanting a handout so much as we're talking about folks who need a leg up or children who have nobody else to protect them.
Yeah. And a lot of our politicians pander on both sides. But, there's a lot of pandering going on. It was like I was telling y'all earlier. What needs to happen for the next couple of years is all the pandering needs to stop. Let's get some real business done. Let's take care of the people of this state. Let's make some balanced budgets, make some good decisions, and let's get things done. We don't want the Democrats happy. We don't want the Republicans happy. We want everybody feeling okay about it. And when that happens, means we're having good government. And,
right.
Then crank your pandering back up 6 months out from the election if that's what you want to do.
The other day
just let the work you do speak for itself, and we'll move on.
Yeah, well, the other day I told a Politico that I respect, I said, I pray every day for good government. He said, well, Britt, you ain't praying hard enough. Well, Beth, I think we need to talk about what we can do instead of what we cannot do.
Right.
And too often our politicians say we can't. And as my grandma used to say, Can't never could.
Could always tried.
Which I always rolled my eyes.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think a lot of it, too, we just have an issue where people, and y'all know where I stand on all this. Anybody who watches the show knows where I stand on this. But you know, a lot of people who have never had to feel those tight purse strings dictating to people who have never known otherwise how to live their lives. And so part of this is let's just let people do what they need to do for their families.
Well, my challenge to people, to those who profess Christian faith, is that let's stop talking so much about God and act like His Son.
That'd be helpful.
Wouldn't that be nice?
That would be nice.
Let's move this over. Mo Brooks. I am just...
Speaking of people who think they're God.
I mean, ALFA did not endorse Mo Brooks. They endorsed Chris Lewis. When is that happening? I mean, how did that happen, John?
I mean, that came out of left field. I don't think anybody expected that to happen when you're looking at a current incumbent congressman who does pretty well in the polls and who's somewhat well liked. I mean, obviously they're seeing some polling that we're not, or either Chris Lewis must just be a dadgum good farmer is all I can figure. I don't know. But I don't know a whole lot about that race because I don't live up there, but you know.
Well, I mean, Mo Brooks, we thought he was just the right amount of crazy for Republicans in Alabama.
Well, apparently we were wrong. Now, ALFA has made some endorsements lately that were a little odd to most people and didn't endorse some people that everybody assumed they would. But you spoke to this guy the other day, and he seems like a reasonable guy.
I mean, he is he graduated from the Naval Academy. He was a pilot. He has a degree in political science and also one in national security and strategic studies.
Wow.
I talked to this guy, and the first thing we talked about is he said, this for me is about service over self, and I want to, Beth, get that message that whether a Democrat, Republican, independent, or whatever, we need to start looking at politicians who put serving the people over self-serving.
Right. I mean, and I think it's important to remember whoever wins this primary will be the next congressman from North Alabama. And I mean, I know they call him Moron Brooks up in that district just because this guy's dense, like bad dense. Like, oh gosh, I can't deal with him.
Not well liked in D.C. either.
And it sounds like, I mean, obviously I wouldn't be voting for him, but this Chris Lewis guy, for what the Republicans have been giving us, isn't the bottom of the barrel, at least, so that's helpful.
He's intelligent, and that would be a step up.
And he can probably spell intelligent, which is more than
well,
Mo
there you
Brooks
go.
can do.
He did sound very intelligent. We had some sad news last week. Big John Williams, longtime sheriff of Lowndes County, was killed violently. He will be missed.